Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the very first edition of the Hump Day Hiatus for 2019. I could not be more excited to be here with Kristy Fassio, who is in Seattle.
I am.
So thank you for joining us on what is a little bit earlier in the day. So to kick this year off, we are going to take a little look at the core element from a body trust practice, which focuses on redefining what healing looks and feels like. And so today, Kristy and I are going to be diving into, what do we do when we stop dieting? Right? Like what's next? What do we do if we're not measuring our success and our healing on our body size and weight? So we're going to go into a little bit of that. And then hopefully if we have time, we can also touch a little bit on how to have some of these tough conversations with our kids around body size and weight, because I know from what some of my family experiences out in the world, especially in the classroom, it can be very shaming for them to have some of these conversations and really, really, kind of add a blow to some of their self-worth and the things that they're bringing to the world. So we're gonna chat a little bit about that as well. So without further ado, we have Kristy here, and she is a fellow certified body trust provider. She's also a counseling intern, and she's currently kind of navigating the world of eating disorder treatment, and has the intention to bring HAES, which is health at every size, and the body trust lens to everyone that she not only works with, but is present in her life. And I know she's a mom to 3 kids and is really, really passionate about keeping kids away from diet culture so that they're able to stay connected to their bodies, their precious bodies, as she says. And I absolutely love that because it's so, so important. So we will get started. Kristy, if you want to say a few things about yourself and maybe share a little bit about, how diets have impacted your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it all pretty much. I've got 3 kids, and they're pretty amazing. One of them will be 12 in a few weeks, and that's ridiculous. But I wish I could tell you what the first diet I went on, but I feel like the majority of my life was spent dieting. I mean, I was dieting in junior high, high school, all the way up. And I feel like the more independent I got and the more money I got, like as I got bigger, the dieting could get more extreme.
Right.
And it was always the classic diet cycle of try something new. And of course, you lose the first X amount of pounds, and you start getting the compliments, and, but it never lasted because they're not meant to. I didn't know that. I mean, I was totally stuck in thinking that it was completely my fault. Again, because we're meant to. I was told some horrible things. I came back from my honeymoon in Paris, like in France, with amazing food, and was basically shamed for gaining weight. And well, here's the amount of money it's going to cost you to lose this weight. And I mean, it was just, when I look back on the probably 15 to 20 years of dieting history in my life, it was dark. I probably wasn't a great person to be around at the time. And I remember being on my last kind of big push. I mean, I didn't know it was the last one at the time, but thankfully it was. And I was out on a run, and I had kind of a little breakdown almost. And I remember calling my coach at the time, and I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And I had no clue what else to do. I just had this little voice inside saying, this is not okay. You are not you're not being kind to your body. There has to be something else out there, and you're going to find it.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really glad I listened to that little voice, because it was not loud, but I'm really glad I listened.
Yeah. And you mentioned something really important, and I'd like to draw a little more attention to it, which is that they're not meant to work when you're talking about these diets that you were on.
No.
Can you share just a little bit more about what you know about that?
Well, I mean, if they were meant to work, there wouldn't be so many of them. They wouldn't have to keep having New Year's specials. They wouldn't have to keep reinventing themselves and getting brand new celebrity spokespeople. They wouldn't. They would just work, and you'd be done with them, and you'd walk away. But they don't, and I think they know that. I don't think they're even fooling themselves. I just picture all these people sitting up in boardrooms, just laughing at the amount at all of us just giving them our heart. I took out loans to be on diets. They were just so happy to give me, here's the paperwork for loans. I mean, that affects my credit. We're not talking about just my body. We're talking about my entire life and the amount of money I put into trying to be smaller. I wasn't trying to be healthier. I was trying to be smaller.
Right.
I know that.
Yeah. And so much of our worth and identity as, for the majority of those of us who identify as female is is attached to the size and shape of our body.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And so it's almost like this kind of intrinsic piece of being female is that we're expected to look a certain part. And if we don't, we're failure. There's something wrong with us.
Yep.
And like you said, I'm sure that they know the science that's out there, right? That talks about our set point weight of where our bodies naturally like to be, based primarily on our genetics, right? And that trying to shape, control, curate this body into something else, always ends up in us, maybe finding what we're looking for, reaching our goals for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Right? And then eventually we go back. And as you said, we blame ourselves. We fell off the wagon. We lost control. It's our fault.
Yep. And even the language that they use, I mean, the phrase, how's that working for you? I mean, I just remember, well, we'll see what the scale says. And just all of this, you did this to yourself. So, it's horrible.
And rooted in the idea that being fat is bad.
Totally within your control.
100%. Yeah, totally. And I know myself as well with my my dieting history as well, and food history. When you're in it, you're in it.
Oh man. Yeah.
There is nothing else, and it completely consumes you. You spend all of your time, and as you said, hard-earned money or loans even, on pursuing this goal that we're taught is going to bring us all of the happiness that we desire, all of the ease, the success. And so you go in, right? And put the blinders on. Nothing else is important as much as that is important.
Right. Because who wouldn't? I mean, we would be silly to overlook the fact that it is easier to be in a smaller body in this world. It's easier to shop for clothes. It's easier to fit in things. You can ride on planes easier. You can fit in cars easier. You can date easier. I mean, it's impossible to overlook that.
Yeah.
And it sucks Like it is not okay. And it just shows systemically what we're fighting against. Still not worth it.
Yeah, systemically. And now I find that it's, the whole kind of diet industry is constantly rebranding itself. Constantly. And so, we think like, oh, okay, I'm done with diets and I want to be healthy. Yep. Right? Because now there's this additional layer of that has now been attached to thin bodies, right? We're told that it's a healthier way of living.
Yep.
Right? You're healthier if you're in a thin body.
Yeah. I just want to be healthy.
Right.
Yeah, but you're doing all the same things.
Oh, totally. And that was kind of like, there were many stages to my exit from dieting. And that was one of them.
Yep. And it took me a long time to realize that if someone was telling you, don't worry about the number on the scale doesn't matter. Oh, but here's the scale. Can you please step on it?
Yeah. Like, what the fuck is that?
Seriously? You're going to tell me not to worry about it? You're still going to record it? No.
Yeah.
To me, that's like your integrity. Just no. It's not a measure of anything.
Yes.
They're not putting like my cholesterol numbers on before and after pictures. They're just putting my body.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, there are so many words for it, but I don't even know. I mean, I feel in my body, like everything just goes, ugh.
Yeah.
And my heart breaks.
Yep.
Because what other things could we have done?
Oh my gosh. What could I have done with the money and with the time? Like, I kind of have to not think about it because
you're like, fuck.
I could have like 3 cars. I could probably have, the amount of money and the amount of time, yeah.
So I'm curious to know, you heard that little tiny quiet voice.
Yeah.
And so what kind of was your next step in the direction of listening to that voice?
I started with the Google and I don't even remember what I was typing in. I think I was just searching. And so I kind of think of it as like my little breadcrumb trail. And you're right. There were lots of layers to it. And I went through I'm not going to diet again, but what if I tried this? And so I was still trying to lose weight. I was just trying to like not diet. And it's these little stair steps that you take. And along the way, you kind of have to just be open to just really shedding what's not working until you're really ready to just take that huge step of, I have to be okay right here. So it was just a lot of little kind of breadcrumbs and stair steps and working with coaches and really paying attention to what was put in my path. And I'm just kind of thankful that I veered toward, the Haze way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I first discovered, so for me, my kind of entry point was Janine Roth.
Mine too.
And Women, Food, and God. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, this is about something else.
Yeah. Mine was, oh my gosh, what was it? When Food is Love. And it was the first time I remember sitting on a city bus. I was taking the bus home and I was reading stories of other women and their binges and crying because I literally had no idea other people did this. I really thought I was broken.
Yeah.
And I hesitate because Janine is problematic in a lot of other ways, but I think a lot of us to this work, or to at least just recognizing that they're kind of getting that sense of common humanity, that other people do this and that it's not shameful. Like it really brought that out into the light for me.
Yeah. I can remember, it was very similar for me too in reading Women, Food, and God, because there was pieces of the book where she would share stories from retreat attendees.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I just kind of went, oh,
yeah, like
this is actually quite common.
Yeah.
So what's that about?
Right. And then I randomly found a Hayes quote, like a quote from Health at Every Size. Okay. And I posted it on Facebook and I was like, this really resonates with me. And a friend of mine posted underneath, she said, this is what I do, right? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And we met for coffee and that started the slide, climb, I don't know, whatever. That was kind of the big thing because she just opened doors. Yeah. Everybody needs someone like her in their life. Her name's Jenny. And if you can find yourself someone who's like a joiner, someone who's like, I'm going to give you this person and I'm going to give you this person and I'm going to give you this person, like you hold on to that person and you don't let go.
Yes.
And she's the one who she brought me to an eating disorder conference down in Oregon, down at Lewis and Clark. And she said, I'm going to introduce you to Hillary and Dana. And I was like, what? And I was like fangirling like crazy. Yeah. And, but she did. And I remember meeting both of them, and Amy Pershing was there and Shavise Turner was there. And, oh my gosh, that was the day I decided that things were going to change, like professionally, personally, everything, because here were people doing this amazing work and they were doing it with heart and with conviction and with passion. And I wanted to be like them.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I know as soon as I really started to find the people out there as well, and, based on the fact that we're both certified, Hillary and Dana passed my path as well. Yeah. For those of you who are listening, Dana and Hillary are the owners of Be Nourished, which is in Oregon. And to me, they are just revolutionary in helping folks to heal their relationship with food and their bodies. Yeah. And kind of my main really big takeaway that I experienced with them was that there's nothing wrong with me.
Oh my gosh. Right.
It was like, wait, I can show up in my body and be as I am, and I don't actually need to change it.
Yep.
Like I don't even understand.
I just remember the radical feeling, and this wasn't them, but it was one of my therapists, because I've been very lucky to have amazing therapists in my life. And we were kind of talking about my history, and I was talking about when I was 9 and 10 because my period was starting and all this stuff. And she looked at me and she said, Kristy, what if you were just hungry?
Right.
And I kind of looked at her like, what are you even talking about? Like I'd never been given permission to just eat before. And so I just love these radical people that have been put in my life who just were like, have you ever given yourself permission to be anything? Mm-hmm. Like to eat, to exist, to wear clothes that fit, anything.
Yeah, to take up space.
To take up space. Yeah.
And so in listening to you, it sounds like you definitely found some key people who helped to kind of open doors for you as you walked away from dieting towards what you weren't sure was out there, but just what felt right and what felt good.
Yep.
And so I'm curious about what that process was like for you of becoming a little bit more aware of yourself, and so that you were in a position where you were able to actually listen and honor what felt good and right?
Yeah. Gosh, it's a very muddy process. And I think anybody who tells you otherwise is lying or selling something. Like, it should be muddy. It should be hard. It should be confusing, because I basically found myself taking out everything that I thought I knew and looking at it and asking myself if it was true. I mean, also, I spent 2 weeks literally telling myself every time I put something in my mouth, I would tell myself, I have permission to eat this. I have permission to eat this. I have permission to eat this.
Yeah.
Every single, no matter what it was.
Yeah.
Every single time. And that changed a lot for me.
Yeah.
Because permission is really easy to say, but it's harder to like really root in your body.
Absolutely.
So that helped. And it meant getting rid of some things. Like, I was a fitness instructor, and that meant getting rid of fitness in my life. Like, I stopped exercising.
Yeah.
Partly because I was injured, because I was really overdoing it. And partly because I couldn't figure out what role it was going to play anymore. So there was a lot of I'm saying this carefully, kind of an out of control feeling, because I had to, like, eating in my life was in 3 stages. There was dieting, so restricting, binging, and pregnancy. 3, like, and pregnancy was always like really weird. Like, well, I'm not really binging, but I can't diet, and what do I do? But so if I'm not binging and I'm not dieting then what do I do? And so it was just this like time of really getting to discover, what do I actually like, and what feels good in my body. And I'm still doing that. Like, I feel like that's the work, and it doesn't stop. And I had to get used to eating in front of people. I don't think we realize how strong diet culture is until we go out to eat with people, and we sit down at a restaurant and everyone starts to kind of talk themselves through eating. And I didn't realize this until I went out to dinner with a bunch of Haze dietitians, and I sat back and watched them eat, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, because they just ate. Yeah. And they were sharing food, and they were eating bread, and it was like I'd never seen anybody enjoy their food so much, because they were enjoying it without guilt or without shame, and they weren't making excuses for it. And they ordered dessert, and they were sharing it around the table, and, oh my gosh, try this, it's heaven. And what do you think of that? Oh, I don't really like it. Cool, try this instead. Like, and that's when it clicked in me that this was new, and that this normal eating out with friends was so foreign. Yeah. So I really had to practice, like, not making excuses when I ate, not shaming myself when I ate, like, just not talking about what I ate. Right. We talk about it a lot, people introduce themselves to me at parties by telling me what they can't eat. Right. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and oh, I can't eat that, and I can't eat that, and I shouldn't be eating this. And I'm like, I've known you for 30 seconds. How about tell me something else about yourself? Like, I don't.
And it always baffles me when something like that happens, because I think to myself, like, I know there's way more interesting things happening for you right now. Yeah. Yeah. And like, it really, really hits home and highlights how much emphasis and value we place on eating.
Yeah. And it always makes me think, what do you think I'm thinking about you right now?
Totally.
It is scary to meet new people. It's scary to meet new people in a marginalized body. And, wondering how am I going to present myself? The concept of a good fatty, like I may look like this right now, but don't worry, I'm trying to fix it. Like I'm really a good person. It's so much of it is just tied up into this feeling of worth that it robs us. It robs us of friendships. It has robbed us, I'm sure, of romantic relationships. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when we don't feel worthy of certain experiences, we completely deny ourselves them, right?
Yep.
We shut pieces of ourselves down that we've been told aren't acceptable, and we try to shrink, we try to hide, and again, like you said, make sure that people know that we're trying.
Yeah. I'm working on it. It's okay.
Yeah. And so that makes me worthy.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's a problem and there's something wrong and I'm fixing it.
Yeah.
So was there anything in your path that you kind of remember as like an aha or a moment that really helped you to start to kind of disconnect your worth from your eating choices and your body size?
It was very powerful for me to get fat friends. Because I needed community around me and I needed amazing role models. And there is something to be said about just not feeling like an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that was just a really powerful feeling. And that's in the last couple of years. I mean, there's so much of this journey that almost like time like folds in on itself. And I mean, none of this is linear.
Yeah.
But that was powerful because I think it let me view myself more objectively. And it taught me how to fix the space around me and not fix me, if that makes sense.
Totally.
It's a really big deal to start to ask for chairs that fit, to start to say, no, I'm not going to go to that place because my body just doesn't fit there. And when I could start advocating for my body and for my comfort, I could just start to treat it better overall.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about an exercise in taking up space.
Yeah.
Right? And claiming your space. In having to ask for the things that you need or say no to the things that aren't.
And it's hard, and it still brings up a lot of feelings and can not feel good. Mm-hmm. I went to the theater with friends for a friend's birthday a couple months ago, and the seats just didn't fit. And I knew I would have been sitting there in extreme discomfort for 2 hours. And I said, sorry, I can't. And I went and found an usher, and I'm like, this doesn't fit, find me something else. And he did. And he was great about it. And I ended up sitting, 10 rows from the front in just a regular chair. And that was great. I wasn't enjoying it with my friends.
Right.
That sucked.
Yeah.
So it's never easy, but it's my body and it deserves to be comfortable. It got me here. My body's done a lot of really amazing things for me, and it's about time I start doing amazing things for it too.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, I really get so mad about the fact that you have to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
like it's this, and these are the systems and the things that we really need to pay attention to and start to change, because there's no reason that all bodies can't be accommodated for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a lot of excuses made around it on why places can't or why they don't, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, figure it out. There's larger chairs out there. There's like even just the spacing of chairs.
Totally.
Like, you can't cram, just because the table fits 10 chairs doesn't mean 10 people are going to fit there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, it's ridiculous, the blinders we have on.
I know. And, really goes and speaks to the kind of like privilege that exists out there in the world, right? Where for folks who don't have to, who thinking about these things isn't part of their regular everyday awareness, just really actually, struggle to see other folks.
Yeah.
And I think, that's something that we all need to work on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So I think that kind of segues a little nicely into our chat about young ones and bodies.
Yay.
Yeah, I know.
You'll tell me about this.
I know. You're so passionate about this, and I love it. So for those of you who haven't watched, I don't know if it's public on your Facebook page or if you've put it anywhere. I shared it, actually. It's on my Facebook page. I shared your rant.
It's been viewed like close to 3,000 times, and I can't even believe that.
Yay! That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great, because it's so important, the things that you say, and you and I have connected and had this conversation because I've given a lot of talks to parents and new moms, to expecting moms, and there are always a few questions that pop up in every single session. And it's crucial, because we know from the research that, kids start thinking about their bodies in negative ways, even as early as like 3 and 4 years old.
Yep.
Right? They start internalizing these fucked up messages that are,
They're not born with that.
What's that?
They're not born with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's on us.
100%. Yeah. And so how can we start to have conversations with our young ones that starts to change the discourse? And I know there's a few things that you do in your family that I'm really excited for you to share. So I'll just floor's yours.
The first thing I always tell parents, because I get this a lot, is you've got to figure out what you feel about bodies. Because the majority of us know how we feel on some level about a lot of things. We know how we feel about race. We know how we feel about sexuality. We know how we feel about gender on some level, right? And so talking about those things, it's never easy, but we at least know we kind of have to. Bodies, if we hate our own body, if we have a really shitty relationship with our own body, that's what's getting passed on, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell me up and down, I just want my kids to be healthy. I just want my kids to be strong. Bullshit. If you are still dieting, if you are still trying to make yourself smaller, if you are still weighing yourself, that's what your kid's picking up on. And they're going to get a really conflicted message when you're telling them one thing and showing them something else.
Yeah.
So get really clear and really honest about what you feel about bodies. Like, don't bullshit yourself about it. And then you got to talk about it. Always. Always, always, always. I know my kids are already sick of it, but, when we watch TV together, I will call out what I see. Why is the fat kid always the one getting dumped on? Why is the fat kid the one getting the dates? Why are there no fat kids anywhere on this show? We just, I even call out, like we were watching Project Runway and they had, you know, sizes of models up to size 22. Great. Why not a 24? Why not a 26? Why is it still a very conventionally attractive size 22? Like I go everywhere with it. There's nothing I'm not going to talk about with bodies. And we talk about, I talk about my body. My kids know I'm fat. My kids know that's not a bad word in our house. My kids know it's not a bad word anywhere. And when that gets pressed and when questions come up, you know, we answer them very frankly. You know, when my sixth grader, when she was in fifth grade, they were having a nutrition class. And I was like, you're coming home and you're telling me everything about that. And she did. And at one point in time, she said, Mom, this is really confusing. And I said, you're right. But bottom line is you listen to your body. And when your body's hungry, you feed it. And when it's full, you stop. And sometimes we don't do that. And sometimes, you know, like there are times when we overeat and it's great because the food is really, really good. And there are going to be times when we're hungry because we just didn't pack enough food with us. And, you know, like, but I said, bottom line is, who knows your body? And she said, I do. And I said, does anybody else know your body better than you? And she said, no. I'm like, that's the bottom line, period. And I point out when people are trying to disconnect her from her body.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I find, you know, I always, as much as possible, when I'm, you know, speaking with parents and caregivers, I really emphasize the fact that you can bring this back to your child's experience.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, this isn't about your experience.
Yeah.
Or anyone else's other than theirs. So what was that like for them? How did that feel for them? Because I find a lot of times as well with kids, we glaze over that stuff, right? Like we just think it's not important. We just think, oh, they're too young. They don't need to know. And, you know, and we really miss those opportunities to reinforce that autonomy and that connection.
They get it. I just had a thought and it's, I can tell when my stuff comes up. My kid was in a dance class last summer with some older kids and they all had like the fancy dance gear and the sweat stuff came up. My stuff of being a sixth grader who didn't have the cool clothes, you know, came up and I was like, do you want to go out and like buy new clothes? You know, and I'm trying to like check in without like, and she's like, Mom, I'm fine. And I was like, okay. I need, like, this is my stuff. This is my stuff. Take it away. Take it away. You know, otherwise, you know, I'm going to give her a complex that she doesn't need or doesn't want, you know, but her body, she was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I remember hearing someone tell a story about how they were coming home from soccer with their daughter and another girl on the team were sitting in the back seat and they were talking about their leg size and just saying that like describing, you know, using the words skinny and fat and the mom was all like, oh God, they think they're fat, like freaking out in the front seat. Yeah. And before she jumped in, right, with her own stuff, she just asked some clarifying questions and they were using them simply as descriptors.
Yep.
Right? There was nothing pejorative about the word fat in their mind at that time.
Right.
And so I hear so often, you know, people like banning the word fat. Or, you know, making sure that their kid knows that they're not fat. And all of that still places the emphasis on the fact that it's something that is bad. Yeah.
The number one question I get is someone called my kid fat on the bus, on the playground, at school. What do I do?
Yep, totally.
You know? And I always say, well, listen to them. You know, what do you think about that? Oh my gosh, tell me about that word. How does that make you feel? Don't respond with, but you're not fat.
Thank you.
Like, what if they are? Mm-hmm. Like, we have fat kids.
Totally. Yeah.
You know? And So I just explore that, you know, and well, in our house, that's not really a bad word. So I'm really curious. I wonder where that person was coming from. I wonder what they've been taught. You know, like just get to their feelings about it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's their experience, it's their story. And we get to craft, you know, we do get to inform that narrative, but it's still their story and their experience. And it's not up to us to rush in with our feelings about that word.
Yes.
So have a conversation with them about, like, especially if they're upset. If they're not upset, go with it. Like, awesome, cool. Oh my gosh, someone noticed you. That's awesome. How fun. But, you know, but if they're upset, what else would, you know, if they came home saying somebody called me stupid, well, let's talk about that. Oh my gosh, I wonder where that came from. You know, like, have a conversation with your kid who's crying, but in the end, come back to what we feel about bodies in our family.
Yeah, I find something that I have found helpful is to create almost like a food vocabulary or like a body vocabulary, so that you know, everybody kind of is on the same page in terms of what a few of these key things mean and are. And then that way there is that reference point that you're speaking about, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We don't use the word healthy in our family. There's not, because it's just so subjective. It's so subjective. And, you know, I center fat bodies in our, like, we do like talk about how all bodies are good bodies. And then I always add, and fat bodies are really good bodies too. Like that always gets centered in our family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I find, you know, as you were saying, you know, coming back to that conversation with them and asking them questions, you know, how did that feel, you know, or, you know, what feels good, as, you know, you were sharing the conversation with your daughter, you know, nobody knows your body better than you. This is your body. I think that those cannot happen enough.
We can't. And if you haven't started them, start them. Like, there's no wrong time to start conversations.
Yes. And something else that I find that also can be complicated in having these conversations as well is our relationship with pleasure.
Yes.
Right? Because when we're asking, well, what feels good in our body?
Yeah.
You know, there were decades of my life where I didn't know.
No clue.
I followed plans. I followed rules.
Yep.
And what I thought about
eating it, right?
And what I thought about feeling good was that it was bad. It was indulgent. It was selfish, gluttonous, you know? And so unpacking some of that stuff as well, as, you know, what you feel about bodies, what are your beliefs about bodies? I found to also be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that is so important with constructing that supportive relationship with yourself and your children, them feeling, you know, knowing that it's okay to do these things, because there's going to be so much conversation out there as well. I know, you know, like sugar, things that taste good being banned from classrooms, or, you know, rules around that teachers have put in place about having to eat all of your main meal before you can have your dessert and things like that. So everywhere we kind of turn, we're shown ways to disconnect. Yep.
And we're shown ways where adults know better for my body than I do.
Yes, that's the hugest one.
Yeah. Totally. And there are, I mean, I've got lots of friends whose kids have allergies, and I think there is exceptions to everything. I never, you know, I never say always or never, but I just did. But, you know, but if we're talking about just in general with our kids, you know, I get to choose what comes in the house. And I am very privileged in that I get a wide range of things to choose from. And that's not the same for everybody. And that's kind of where I get the problem with a lot of kind of health education, is it's coming from, it's assuming that these kids have a wide array of foods to choose from, and that they get to go to the grocery store all the time, and that there's a grocery store close. And it's just a big blind spot.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm aware of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you would like to share? I know someone here commented, we need more straight-sized allies who are mad to make noise too.
Absolutely. And I my friends that have come over to kind of our side, they're so loud and they're so like sweary about it all. I mean, I've had friends email locations for me because, I'll post a rant and they'll be like, look, I emailed this and here's your option. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because, we all have a place in this.
Absolutely.
Just like we all have a place in every single social justice fight, and everyone has a place in this. And for good or for bad, straight size people get listened to more. So use your voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and amplify the voices of others.
Yes, absolutely. So important. Yep. And listen, like I listen, spend a lot of time listening to folks who have different experiences than yours. Mm-hmm. Listen to marginalized voices, right? Believe them.
Always.
Yep. Just because you do not have a same, you may have had a similar experience and it went totally different from you. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And if that little voice comes up that makes you want to go, but that's a really good sign that you're not listening well enough.
I love MI training, motivational interviewing, sit on your hands and say, no fixing, no fixing, no fixing.
Yep.
Right? Like we don't need to fix those problems and we don't need to correct them. We just need to be there and be seen.
Yep.
Yeah. And I say it's not an easy thing to do, nor is it a small thing to do. It's very important.
Not at all.
Yeah. Is there anything else that's here for you before we sign off?
I don't think so. This was fun.
Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I always just tell people, use your voice.
Awesome.
Use your voice. Whatever you're passionate about, use it.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening, those of you out there. The replay will be posted on my Facebook page. Feel free to share. It'll also be on my vlog, on my website, Reclaiming the Wild as well. And for those of you who are interested in connecting with Kristy and hearing more of what she's all about, you can find her on Instagram. And her handle is Redhead Bopo Warrior. So check that out. Please, please, please. She's got amazing content and always some really great rants. Thanks so much for joining us, Kristy. And we will see y'all next week. Same time, same place. I have Sophia Wadowska with us, who is from Kamloops, British Columbia, and also a fellow body trust provider.
Pretty awesome.
So stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.